In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I talked to Jeet Banerjee about hitting the ground running and the dangers this has. And I have a little task for you because what's life without a challenge? Hello and welcome to session 11 of the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I am your host, Turndog, and in today's edition I interview Jeet Banerjee, who is a very young and vibrant entrepreneur and just so happens to be the very first person I interviewed for The Successful Mistake. If you're unaware of what The Successful Mistake is, it's a book I'm working on and it's all about an entrepreneur's great mistake and how they turned it around. I'm delighted to share Jeet's story with you because, well, you always remember your first, don't you? Before I get to Jeet though and his amazing tale, I want to set you a quick little task/challenge, and this is a bit different to how I've approached other sessions of the Purple Coffee Podcast. But I've been reading about this a lot lately and it's been hanging in my mind, and I've looked back at the times when I've done it myself and the inner joy it brings. So here's your task. I want you to go away and connect two people who do not know each other but you know for the hell of it. I don't want you to do it because you feel like they might be beneficial in a business world. I don't want you to do it because you feel it might help you down the road somehow. I want you to do it because you have person A and you have person B and you just think they will knit well together. And that's it. You can do it in person, with a Skype call, you can do it over email, send them both letters, and arrange a blind date. I don't care how you do it, but I want you to think about two people and how you can join them together. Like I say, this is something I've been reading about a little recently, and it's something that's been hanging on my mind. I look back at the times I've done this, and it does bring a great deal of joy into your world. The added benefit, sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes it does bring that physical benefit to your world too. Maybe a job does come about, or maybe you yourself get introduced to someone of benefit. I don't know, but I don't want you to do it for that reason, but if you do it for the right reason, good things often do happen. And as I build a great deal of my life around building and developing successful relationships, valuable relationships, the kind of relationships I can take for years into the future, this is a fantastic challenge to set someone. So I hope you'll do it. It's a very quick thing. Like I say, 5 minutes of thinking, 2 minutes of email writing, and you're done. And who knows what might happen. But we will now move on to the main part of this podcast and my interview with Jeet Banerjee, and I can't wait to share his story. It all began when he was around 17 years of age, and I think he's only 20 or 21 now, so a very young guy, but a great future ahead of him. He's super vibrant, super enthusiastic, and yeah, it's the kind of person when you come off a talk with him, you're just full of beans. Great person to chat to and a great person to follow online. And Jeet talks basically about jumping in too fast, not doing his research, not thinking about the strategy or the business model or the legal side as much, and just going for it. Sometimes this is fine and often recommended, but you always need to have that vision and that structure in mind. And not having that in his mind, it did lead him to a rocky road. It wasted some time, it cost him some money, and it set him back some. But before I hand you over to Jeet, you might want to know who this guy is. So I created a bit of a tale about Jeet, being a storyteller and all, why not? And yeah, this is what I came up with. So I'm going to read some notes and introduce you to his world. Jeet is one of those young entrepreneurs you often hear about. You know the ones. Whilst the rest of us are out drinking, falling in and out of love and working at Blockbuster, they're starting their own businesses, appearing in cool magazines, and overall making 90% of the young population look lazy and inept. Thanks a lot, Jeet. Oh yes, whether it's writing, digital marketing, building apps, doing TED Talks, or starting one new project after another, Jeet Banerjee rocks it from left and right. To be young. and successful and awesome. Over to the interview. Box 2. And today I'm delighted to be speaking to Jeet Banerjee. So big thanks to Jeet for doing this. And this talk is for a new book that I'm doing, but I won't release any information just yet. But hopefully this interview will sort of open up a few avenues later down the road. So Jeet, thank you for joining us.
No problem. I'm glad to be here and help you with the book.
Thank you. All right, well, let's get things started. Can you just begin by giving us a quick overview about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm basically a 19-year-old serial entrepreneur. I started my first company when I was 17 years old. Along with my entrepreneurial ventures, I'm also a consultant. I have a blog and I blog quite often, and I'm also an author as well, and I'm actually also in the process of writing a book myself. So I do all that, and I go to college at the same time. So that's who I am. And in regards to my business, I launched my first startup at the age of 17, which was a web design, web development, internet marketing company. I ended up selling that just about 4 or 5 months ago to kind of focus on my new startup companies. And the one that I have out right now is StatFuse. And what we do at StatFuse is essentially we help high school students with the transition to college. We give them the tools and resources necessary for them and their parents to kind of get in their dream college. And I'm also excited about launching a new startup company that's coming out in the next few days, which is an internet marketing tool that essentially is like do-it-yourself search engine optimization that helps businesses rank their own websites at a really affordable price. So, yeah.
Wow, lots on. Very much the entrepreneurial spirit. So it must be insane to be doing all that. You're just 19 years old. You started when you were 17. It's a big thing for such a young man to be undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of fell in love with the whole entrepreneurial thing once I started, and I've never had to look back.
Okay, and you're in California right now, yes? Did you say Orange County?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's just been a little too hot.
Yeah, we were just speaking before we started recording. I think we've got the opposite ends. I've got the rain and you've got the sunshine. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm certainly jealous, but we'll move on from that. So on to the questions. I'd like you to think back over your last few years being an entrepreneur. When you first set up your business, if there was one thing that you could do differently, what would that be?
If I could do one thing different from if I got to rewind back and start fresh, I would definitely focus on the legal stuff. When I first started my first startup at 17, I had no clue that you had to incorporate your business and you had to follow all these state laws and regulations. So I kind of just made a website and just started selling on my business, and I did that for a pretty long period of time, which was definitely not good. And it wasn't that I was trying to evade the government or anything like that. It's just I had no idea on how to create my own business legally. So, I mean, that definitely did some damage because later on when I tried to sell my business, the revenue I generated like in the first 6 months couldn't count because I was an illegal entity. So, I mean, I would definitely focus on the legal stuff a lot more if I could go back in time.
Wow, so if you could go back a couple of years, you'd maybe hire a lawyer or something.
Yeah, and I'd actually do research on how to start a legal business.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think we could all probably sort of do with that research. I'm very much a novice when it comes to the legal side. So
Yeah.
this whole interview, this is all about talking about mistakes and the mistakes that you've made and how you overcame them. So I want you to think about the biggest mistake you've made in business. And please tell us a bit of a story around that, what the initial mistake included.
The biggest mistake I ever made in business was when we were launching our company StatFuse and we were working on our business plan and we were getting that whole thing together. We had a great idea for StatFuse, but the problem was that we never thought about how we were going to make money. It was all about creating the best website, helping the students, but at the end of the day, to make it a business, you have to have a clear strategy to monetize it. And when we created StatFuse, we had no thought about that, and we just said, "Oh, we're just going to launch free, and people are going to run to us for advertising on our website, and we're just going to be millionaires just doing that." So that's kind of what we assumed, and we thought we could get advertisers like Google would be running to us saying, "All right, let me place an ad on your website for 20,000 a month or something." But once we actually got into the glimpse of things, and even though we did really good traffic numbers, really great unique visitors, nobody wanted to advertise on our website. and that kind of hit us really hard the first few months. And then we couldn't find an advertiser, so we went to Google AdSense, and we were making like a couple dollars a day. So you can kind of see how that was like very disappointing for us, just because we thought we had a chance to have huge traffic numbers, and that traffic would convert into huge advertising revenue, but it really didn't, because we were comparing ourselves with sites like YouTube and other things, and that was a very bad thing to do from the start. So I guess the biggest mistake with staff views was the fact that we didn't have a clear way of monetizing the website from the start, and that kind of really set us back 6 months in the whole process.
It's something I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs and startups, go through because you obviously love your idea, you've got so much passion for it, and it doesn't always translate into other people until you actually sort of set some foundation. So sometimes your sort of ideas aren't always going to generate into the sort of the dreams that you aspire to, at least not initially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not every great idea initially can be made into a great business. You kind of have to find a creative way to incorporate an idea into a business model.
Okay. So what were the repercussions of this? Did it have some financial and emotional effect? Did it affect you in terms of time? How did it affect you?
It affected us in all three ways, I guess. I mean, financially, we were essentially not making any money for like 6, 7 months, and considering how much we had put into the startup from the beginning, it was pretty damaging for us, not to make any money and have had to commit that much money into the project. And then emotionally, we were really disappointed, as you can imagine, if you're going and thinking you can make tons and tons of money, and then at the end you come back and you realize, oh crap, like nothing went right, and we're gonna have to go back in time, which is where the time kicked in. Kind of lost out on 6 months of generating money since we hadn't come in with a clear plan. So essentially, we kind of had repercussions in all three ways, but it wasn't something that we could never overcome, essentially.
Okay, so were you still at high school or were you in college at this point when you had this?
The website at this point, I was in my first year of college, so yeah.
So that must have been so hard because obviously I would imagine it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster anyway. You've just started college, you've got all these new things in your life anyway. You're obviously putting a lot of time into your studies, and this is a side project, and you thought it might take X amount of hours, and all of a sudden it's doubled.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it was really disappointing for both me and my partner. Like we were pretty down upon ourselves for a while, and because of the mistakes we'd kind of made.
Okay, so how did you overcome it? Because obviously you're doing a little bit better now. You're moving on. It's established. You've got another startup point just about beginning. You sound like a young man with many ideas. So how did you overcome these initial issues?
Yeah, I mean, after a few weeks of kind of drowning in our sorrows, we kind of realized quickly that we can't change the past, but we can change the future. So we just kind of agreed, okay, we screwed up, we made these mistakes, now we have to change it, and we can make this a successful business. So this is when we started taking the idea and actually turning it into a business, thinking of how to package it, how to market it, how to sell it, and how to kind of generate revenue from our customers and from our users instead of trying to generate money from a third party source that we have no guarantee of. So we kind of changed the business model and the pricing structure. We made it where we gave out a couple features for free. Then we started charging $4.95 a month for more features. And then we had a huge package where we gave up all the features on our website for $9.95. So kind of a basic pricing, monthly pricing structure is what we decided to create.
Okay, so how have you gone about sort of communicating that? Because obviously the initial way was it was everything was going to kind of be free and it was going to rely on the advertising. Did you have to maybe sort of change how you sort of communicated that to the world, the feel of the website, the flow of it all?
Yeah, we definitely had to make some changes, and I mean, even till today, we're making changes every day, because we need to find the best design and the best structure of the website that converts the highest rate of users. So, I mean, it's been a learning process since the beginning. Like, we'll change this thing on the pricing page. Next day, we'll try this on the sign up page, and we just kind of do different things to the website to see what'll get us the highest conversion rates.
Fantastic. So what have you learnt from this mistake?
I've learned from this mistake that you always have to go in with a clear plan before you launch the website. I mean, if you have a great idea, that's great, but you kind of have to think about how you're going to make this idea into a business. and you kind of have to figure out clearly what ways are you going to make money, how you're going to market it, and who are your buyers going to be. So you kind of have to do some research and kind of understand what exactly you're trying to sell to people and how you're going to make money off of it. And I think if you go in with a clear plan before launching instead of after launching, you'll save a lot of time and a lot of trouble.
Fantastic. And you've got a new startup coming shortly. Did you say in the next few days?
Yeah, it's coming out in about a few days. I mean, there was a GoDaddy outage that kind of really pushed us back a few weeks.
Yeah, that hit a lot of people. Was this startup kind of bred from this need that you wanted to get straight back in there and maybe put these new things that you've learned, obviously these new lessons, this new knowledge? Did you want to get straight back in there and think, right, how can I, do a better launch? How can I create a better startup?
Yeah, I had a great idea about this internet marketing tool, so I kind of really decided that I was going to capitalize on it. And since I'd kind of learned so many things from StatFuse, this product didn't take me like almost 8 to 9 months to prepare and to get launched, since I had learned already in the past and I learned from my mistakes and I kind of went through the whole process once. This time was a lot easier. I mean, we're going to be on pace to launch within like 3 to 4 months, which is half the time it took for StatFuse. In this one, I've come out with a clear business model, how I'm going to clearly make money. So I've kind of definitely learned a lot of things from my previous company.
Excellent. And I think it's fantastic outlook to have. Obviously, young entrepreneur, things can go wrong, but you just get straight back on the horse. You right the wrongs, and then you get straight back in there and put in them new ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what would you share if you could share one piece of advice to a young entrepreneur or a new entrepreneur? What would it be?
The one advice I would share with people is not to be scared to pursue their ideas and turn it into a business. I think a lot of people have great ideas, but they get kind of scared, or they kind of say, oh, no, I don't want to do it. It's too risky. But I think the one piece of advice I would give people, especially young entrepreneurs and things like that, is to just, if you have a great idea and you believe in it, ask your friends and family, see what they think about it. If they agree it's a great idea, you have really nothing to lose. Just go ahead and do everything you can in your power to make it successful. I mean, you're going to screw up like I've screwed up, but just because you screw up, it doesn't mean that you won't be successful. Everyone messes up at some point. As long as you're passionate about the idea and you learn from your mistakes, you'll be successful.
Sage advice, sage advice. Well, thank you very much. I'm also going to put a link below this video because Jeet did a guest post on my website just a couple of weeks back. So I'll put a link on that so you can see some of Jeet's work as well as his website and Twitter. So please go and check Jeet out. So thank you, viewer, for joining Jeet and I. I hope you have an awesome day. Jeet, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you can send a bit of sunshine my way.
I'll try.
Yeah. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another session of the Purple Coffee podcast over and done with. Thank you so much for watching / listening, and a huge thanks to my very first interviewee for the Successful Mistake, Jeet. It's a true pleasure to have you both part of that book and this podcast, and I'm sure you've taken a great deal from Jeet's words. We all start with an idea. Some of us like to take our time, take a step back and ensure everything's put in place. And some of us like to jump in there and get going straight away. Both extremes are pretty dangerous in my experience, and finding a balance somewhere in the middle is usually the way to go. In Jeet's case, jumping in first hand and making a few mistakes taught him to learn more about the industry he was getting to, putting more effort and time into things like business models and the legal sides, and making a more well-rounded project or campaign or business or venture or whatever it might be. So I hope you took a great deal from Jeet's words. I know that I did. He's a great person to follow, and I encourage you to head over to bit.ly/purplecoffee11 and check out Jeet's Twitter page, Facebook, website, and generally follow his world. And also there's all of the other links on there that we've talked about today, and you can also subscribe to this podcast in a few different ways. So if you're watching this on Vimeo, please follow the channel. If you've been listening on iTunes, please consider subscribing. and leaving a very short review, because reviews mean a great deal to people like me. And if you want to receive these sessions before anybody else, be sure to check out the mailing list and give me your email. I will use it wisely, I promise. And that is that, kids. Thank you so much for joining me, and be sure to partake in that challenge of connecting two like-minded strangers together. If they happen to fall in love, so be it, although I wouldn't recommend that is the main purpose. No, there's online dating sites for that. That's not what this podcast is. And speaking of podcast, that's the end of this one. So until next time, keep it cool.